What do you get when a legless lad and a blind bloke walk into a bar? A couple of mates on a mission to challenge what it means to be tough.
Righto, welcome back to Talkin Tough. I am Ben. I'm here with me great mate Mike.
G'day, Benno.
Mate, we have got an awesome guest episode lined up today. I am pumped about it, but we are a couple of mates that have worked out and are pretty dedicated to the fact that it is better when we lean on each other to get through tough times. And this podcast is proudly brought to you by Ski for Life, an incredible Aussie charity that is dedicated to promoting mental health, well-being and suicide prevention.
Yeah, love it. All things that that touch us on a daily basis. We've all had experiences in one way or the other, whether we know someone, whether we experience ourselves. It's an absolute pleasure. The best way that we can make a difference is by talking about it. And we're bringing in conversations where we can do just that, talk about it. And that's what we're here to do today, mate. Our definition, which we are workshopping throughout this series, and trying to work out how do we redefine tough? What does modern day toughness look like? And so far we've come up with a pretty solid description. Toughness, it's about being honest and speaking up through hardship and pain. I think that's a really, really important distinction as opposed to just enduring hardship and pain, Benno?
Absolutely, mate. And Mikey, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing
How's the
all right.
head?
Thank you very much for asking. Something that we do very regularly as mates. We check in with each other. At the moment, yeah, I'm feeling really good. I'm focused on exercise, which I always do as a non-negotiable. We've spoken that in past episodes. I'm getting out there bashing a golf ball around. Sorry to everyone who's fallen asleep in the last 2 seconds. So that helps me. How about yourself, mate? Let us know.
Mate, to be honest, my last week has been pretty average. I will be completely honest there. Ames has been away for work. She's been interstate, so it's been a solo dad week, which isn't easy when you can't see. And it's involved, obviously, just those few things that when you're in your head and that voice in my head is going, some of these things, mate, should be easier. So when Ames is home and we're dropping the little one off at daycare, it's a 5-minute trip where she jumps in the car, drops her off, 2 minutes down the road, she's home in 5 minutes. Whereas on 5-minute walk, there's a puddle there. We've just pushed the pram through the puddle. Didn't know the puddle was there. Now we're waiting for the bus. The bus is late. Then we're getting on the bus. Then I'm running her into poles in the pram. Then we're eventually getting a daycare. And an hour later, I'm playing chicken with the main road to get back across from where I've got off from the bus. And I'm just going, surely this should be easier. So there's been a few of those moments. I'll be completely honest, mate. There's been a couple of moments where she hasn't fallen asleep too well, and it's sort of been that one out where I'm pretty sure she's teething, and the way I've got to give her Panadol is getting a talking tape measure out, measuring 40 mil on the tape measure, then pulling the syringe out and pulling it down to that 40 mil, and then not being able to see if it's even in her mouth or she's swallowing it or anything like that. So it's in those moments that I've probably gone, oh, this is a bit rough, and it's tested me, to be honest. And the motivation hasn't been quite there because of that. But at the same time, I've also loved the challenge of solo dadding this week. It's something that I absolutely love, spending the time with her. It's a lot of fun, so I wouldn't change it. But it has been a tougher week than normal. I'll put that out there.
And something we talk a lot about is asking for help, mate. Have you reached out? It wouldn't surprise me if you just said, no, I want to do it myself. I want to challenge myself. But have you reached out? Have you got some help from people?
Good question. There's been a lot of offers. My parents, God bless them, they will always, when Ames is away, go, oh, we can do this. We can pick her up. We can drop her off. We can do this. We can do that. We can make you dinner. We can come down for dinner. I'm like, I just want to be able to stand on my own 2 feet and do this by myself, because like we had a child and we've got a little kid now and a family, and that's what we signed up for. I didn't sign up to need to rely on other people to do it. So yeah, that's a challenge, that's a juggling act, but it's coming from a really good place. So no, I haven't necessarily asked for help, but I'm also not opposed to it when I know that I do need it.
Well, mate, I'm really, really excited. I hope today you can. You're as excited as I am. Get some pep in your step, because we are really, really fortunate to be joined by a marvellous character, someone that I've known for quite a while now. Yep. We met each other unusually through. There was a guy that spoke about suicide prevention that came out from the United States. A gentleman that in a really dark moment in his life, decided that it would be the best option to jump off the Golden Gate Bridge. Managed to survive that. His name was Kevin Hines. You can read about his story. It was quite remarkable. But he was running a mental health and wellbeing and suicide awareness tour. I attended one of those meetings, and that's where I met the marvellous gentleman that sits before us, Mick Donehue. Mick Donehue is a great guy, as I'm sure everyone will discover in a moment. He's a mental health first aid trainer. He's a genuine down-to-earth boy from the bush, a fantastic mental health advocate in our community, and he's turned his life around, which we're going to hear more about. Michael Donehue, it is my absolute pleasure. Welcome, mate.
Boys, it's good to be here.
Mate, how good.
Traffic was a nightmare this afternoon as well, and I'm glad to turn up almost on time.
Mate, you were absolutely right on time. It's so good that you're joining with us. Look, first of all, first cab off the rank, I'm noticing across from us that Mick is wearing a T-shirt and it's got on it hashtag everyone has a story. I absolutely love that. And today we're going to be diving.
I love the fact you've told me that he's wearing a T-shirt.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I saw you, Benny, I thought, do I take it off or is it too early in the afternoon? But
Well,
I might leave it on for the moment.
never too early.
He's got some guns, Mike. He's a big unit, so he doesn't mind taking his shirt off at every opportunity. But everyone does have a story, don't they, mate? And that's part of your brand, Journey Apparel, which we'll hear a little bit about later. But it's going to be a fantastic thing to deep dive into your story today. But one of the things we like to ask our guests is talking about when you were a bit younger, this idea of toughness, particularly in Australian males growing up in Benalla, which we'll hear a little bit about. Tell us a little bit about what did you think toughness meant as growing up in a country town in Victoria?
I think toughness for me as a young bloke, small town, I guess stigma attached to how I was feeling was you've got to, be tough. You've got to not show weakness because girls won't like you or, things like that. So I hid a lot of what I was going through for a lot of years. But, in hindsight now, I look at it and think, why didn't I talk sooner? I guess that fear of judgment, shame, guilt, all of those things attached to my mental health problems, I didn't really want to actually talk and open up with the people that I trusted and loved the most. But, it was just all about don't show emotion, don't show weakness. If you cross that white line playing footy with your mates, they don't want to be out there with you. So, I just hid it for a long time. And, I think out of everything that we go through in life, it's just about trying to break down that stigma and thinking, doesn't matter if you're 6 years old, 60 years old, 95 years old, just talk. There's always someone that cares about you, that loves you, that wants to help you, whether that's a mate, family member, friend, health professional. There is always someone there willing to support you and get you through those tough times. So, just talk.
Yep. And mate,
It's pretty simple in theory, isn't it?
Yeah,
And,
it is.
But like you say, growing up, that's not what you considered tough, and we'd love to go back to sort of where it all began, when you were a young whippersnapper in Benalla. Tell us about what life was like growing up. What did it involve? What did it look like? What did you enjoy doing?
I had a great life. I had amazing parents. I still do. Got a great brother who's my best mate. Played music my whole life. I started playing drums when I was 3. Kicking the footy from probably the same age, playing cricket, playing golf, all of those things. So from the outside looking in, I had the typical life of a young country kid. But from probably the age of 16, I realised that there probably was something not 100% right, but I didn't really know what it was. And because I wasn't educated around mental health problems and being on that mental health roller coaster up and down all the time, I just thought that was how I was meant to be.
Yeah. Part of growing up,
part
puberty,
of growing
change,
up.
all
Exactly
that sort of
right.
stuff.
And, that small country kind of feeling. And I didn't really know how to deal with that. And it wasn't until after my best mate's birthdays, at the age of 21, so 5 years later, that I actually thought, things might be a little bit more serious here. Maybe I need to get some professional help. And when
you say serious, obviously there would have been something like, what was sort of happening?
Yeah, what was 16? You said something's not quite right.
Yeah.
Tell us more about what sort of things were going through your head or happening for you to think.
The main thing for me was I just couldn't maintain a steady mood. I was just up and down all the time, and it was the small things that would make a really big difference. So, you look at that bit of paper on the table, and it might have been that hit the floor, and that put me in a really bad mood. Now, to someone else, that could be like something really small,
Yeah.
pick up the bit of paper,
Yeah.
put it back on the table, easy as that.
Yeah.
But for me, like that would put me in a bad mood and I couldn't snap out of it, or I couldn't change that the way that I was feeling. So the main one was, those moods, and then I would take it out on the ones that were closest to me, the ones that I loved. So my parents copped a lot of my moods majority of the time. My brother, I took it out on him. And then I was isolating myself as well. So from, that age of 16 to 18, when you could legally go out and drink and party and things like that, it was like last minute making excuses so that I didn't have to go out and see people. Now, I was never diagnosed with anxiety, but I can go through certain stages where, there's a crowd, or am I going to know everybody at this party or event or things like that? And it just made me feel uptight. So it was like, sorry, Mike, I can't make it tonight because...
So you'd say yes, all your mates would be like, great, Mick's coming out, pumped up about it, and then you'd just stay at home. And what did you do at home? Just be by yourself?
Stay in my room.
Yep.
Just listen to music or, stay in bed or things like that. But it was like a 2-week lead up to the event. Yeah, it's going to be sick,
And did you actually want to go to the event? You were thinking, I'll probably go, or you just knew straight away from the 2 weeks out, you're like, there's no way I'm doing this?
It kind of varied through different circumstances and I guess the week that I was in. Like I could be, really pumped up and going, and I was actually 100% going.
Yeah.
And then last minute, I don't look good. I feel crap. My head's not in the right space. I can't be bothered dealing with people. So it'd be like, sorry guys, I'm not going to make it tonight. I'm not really feeling that well. I had a bad curry last night, or, just making up random excuses. Got to walk the dog. Or,
Did your mates sort of catch on that this is a bit of a pattern that's going on?
I don't know if they did at the time, only because, like I mentioned before, that lack of education around mental health in small communities. I don't know if they really picked up on it, but I guess it might have been that, I'd try and do it once every fortnight or once every month or things like that. So it wasn't all the time. It might have been that I just went to an event for an hour and then, I was gone, smoke bomb, and then I was out. So, it was just more so I didn't really feel comfortable doing those things because I just wasn't in the right headspace to actually do it. But at the same time, I didn't really know what I was going through or where to actually turn for the help that I really needed.
And talk us through, you're 16 to 18, you're sort of starting to withdraw a little bit. You know that there's something not quite right mentally. And then you said a moment ago that you went and said, I need some help. And you went and saw a professional. Talk us through that.
Yeah, well, I guess like from when I was 18 as well, from the outside looking in, it probably looked like I had it all going on. School captain, footy captain,
just getting on with it.
Lead singer of band. Everyone's like,
got it together.
This he's switched on. He's got it all happening.
Yeah, right. But underneath, that's not the case.
Yeah, and I guess I was putting on that mask or putting on that facade to pretend that I was okay when I really wasn't. I was trying to do things to make others happy when I probably wasn't really in the right headspace myself. But from 18 onwards, I guess it started to turn into like more drinking, more parties, longer nights. So then there's less sleep. Food probably wasn't the right choices. Wasn't exercising as much, or if I was, it probably wasn't as hard. So there's those kinds of things. But then leading into, those 3 years into turning 21, I was just like, my partner at the time, she said, look, I think you need some help. And at the time I'd had a skinful. It was probably like 1 a.m. I'd had about 40 pots, and I was just like, I was.
You didn't want to hear that. So she said that, obviously 1 a.m.
She was sitting on my knee at the pub,
and then she said, you need some help.
I think you need some help.
And when she would have picked a better time.
I know.
Yeah, probably.
So when she said that, was she referring to obviously the fact that you'd been drinking heavily, or was she referring to your mental health?
I think it was probably a bit of both.
Okay.
But as a young guy, you don't really look back too much at that and go, the drinking is impacting me that much.
No,
because it's just
standard.
The thing you do.
Yeah.
Play footy, go out with your mates. Yeah, exactly right. And she mentioned that to me, and I kind of stewed on it on the Sunday when I was really hungover, and I thought, I will do something about it. And first thing I did was I spoke to my mum on the Monday morning, and I just said, look, I don't think things are 100% at the moment. And she said, do you feel like making an appointment at the doctor? Now, I was really fortunate that we rang the doctor on that Monday and I was able to get in that Monday afternoon. Now, you look at the amount of health professionals and the people that are going through mental health problems these days, it takes such a long time, depending on where you live and what you might be going through, to actually get an appointment with a health professional. So I was really lucky in that regard. So went to the doctor, did all the testing, and then I was put on medication that day. And, similar to talking about mental health in the community, you didn't really want to do it because, that, like I said before, the judge, shame, guilt, all those things. And then I've got a mental illness, and now I'm on medication.
So was it diagnosed mental illness, Mick?
Yeah, depression.
Yep.
So diagnosed with depression. And at the time I was like, I don't want to take medication, but I thought that the way that I'm feeling now, it can't hurt. So I thought I'll try it. Yeah. So I'll give it a go. And probably from memory, like the first 2 to 3 weeks were probably a little bit worse. Just waiting for, the medication to really kick in, get into the system properly. But I'm not against medication. I'm no longer on medication now just because I've got better coping strategies and coping tools and things like that. But you might be put on one medication, but that mightn't be the right one for you 6 months down the track, even 6 weeks or things like that. So I had regular checkups with my GP and regular visits to make sure that the medication I was on was right. So whether it was the right dosage, the right style, the right brand, things like that. So I probably went through maybe 4 to 6 different medications and dosage changes.
Over what period of time?
I was on medication for probably 7 to 8 years.
So you were really committed you just knew something wasn't right and you were really committed to making it right.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. So
7 or 8 years.
Yeah, I wanted to do the right thing for me because I just thought, well, I feel like shit at the moment. Life is meant to be happy. There's things that you can actually do to try and put things in place to look after yourself. And medication at the time was the right thing for me, but then I started to work other things into my life like exercise and better food choices, cutting out alcohol, and I'm sure that's all stuff that we'll talk about, but there's all of those kinds of things that I put into my lifestyle to try and positively impact that because I went through the stage of medicating but then also self-medicating as well. So when you're drinking and using antidepressants, it's just going to cancel each other out. So it wasn't really doing the job that it was meant to do.
I was just going to say, so it got to a point where you were self-medicating and obviously the effects of the medication or what they were supposed to do wasn't working. Was there a point in time when obviously you realised that you were in some trouble?
Yeah, so 2009 was when I started self-medicating the most. So 2009, I lost my auntie and cousin in the Black Saturday bushfires. And if there's only one thing that you take out of listening to me on this podcast is don't take those moments with your loved ones for granted. If you haven't spoken to someone for a little bit, pick up the phone, send them a text, send them a phone, give them a phone call or things like that, because you don't know when that last opportunity will be. Because we got the phone call on that Sunday morning to say that, my auntie and cousin had lost their life, and that was really, really challenging. But it made me realise how much my family and my friends meant to me. So I guess we can take those moments with people for granted. So it was really challenging for not only me but also my family. But that turned me to alcohol really hard. So I was up till 3 a.m, 5 nights a week drinking alcohol to try and cope. But then it got to the stage where I was waking up on a daily basis thinking about how much I could actually consume to try and get through the day, but then ways that I could end my own life, because at the same time, I was only working 14 hours a week. So for a young guy in a country town, that allowed me to drink a fair bit. I was working on a Friday from 8 until 10 a.m, which allowed me the rest of the day to do whatever I want. Now, I'd get home, I'd probably raid Dad's fridge, and he'd probably get home and be like, "Where's all my beers gone? Who's emptied my fridge
Been robbed."
out?" But
guilty as charged.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. By the time that my mates were knocking off and ready to have a few beers, I was absolutely wasted. And probably either ready to go out and party when they're about ready to have pre-drinks or ready to go to bed. But yeah, that wake-up call that I needed was waking up every day, severely suicidal. And it got to a Thursday night, good old Benalla, we called it Thirsty Thursday, where we'd get all the boys together and just catch up and just check in with each other. And I was always pretty open and honest with my mates when it came to my mental health, but they didn't realise how bad I was. And within half an hour of actually catching up with my mates at the pub, gave him a hug, gave him a kiss on the cheek, because that's a relationship that I've got with my mates. I had a tree lined up at 212 kilometres an hour just because I was sick of the person that I was. And the only thing that stopped me from going through with that was, one, the brakes. Thank God they worked. But also the thought of my family, the thought of my friends, the sporting teammates, the small community wouldn't just impact me or my immediate family, that would impact everybody else around us as well. So I was fortunate that, that was the lowest moment in my life. And there's still times where I have those thoughts, like I have suicidal thoughts, but I know they're only thoughts. I'm in a much better headspace now to look after myself, and I'm the happiest version of myself that I could ever be. But I still have those thoughts. But I know that it's nothing that I'm going to act on, because I'm so much stronger than what I am, 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
So did you, and no stress, if you're not comfortable going there, like...
I'm an open book.
Yeah, mate, and we absolutely love and appreciate that, but there's also that sort of thing of, if you don't feel comfortable, just let us know by all means. But before you went to the pub, are you thinking that after dinner, that's what I'm going to do? Yeah,
well, it was a weird feeling that day, because leading up to that day, I hadn't really planned too much, but leading up to that day, I was pretty flat, pretty down. But I woke up that morning, I was like, I feel pretty good, up and about. And I don't know if that was because I was actually going to see my mates that night. But leading up to that day, I was like, as bad as it sounds for, people that listen to this, it's like, this could be the last time I see my mates. This could be the last time I see my parents, my brother. And then, I think about that now, and you think, God, what impact would that have had on that, their lives, if I'd actually gone through with that? So leading up to it, I was probably a bit of a happier version of myself, because I was like, kind of at peace. I've made the decision. This is what I'm going to do later on. And I didn't really say my goodbyes to my mates. It was just, see you next week, or, see you tomorrow, see you Sunday, or whenever it was.
See you when I see you.
Yeah. So it wasn't really a hug and, last time I'm going to see you, mate.
Yeah.
Thanks for everything. It was more just, I'll see you next week. And then I was in the car and out the road, and I've had people ask me, what does it feel like? And the only way that I can explain it from my own experience was, felt like an out-of-body experience. So it was almost like I was in the car, 212 kilometres an hour, and if you can imagine the reflector posts on the side of the road just looking like a white picket fence, because it was moving that quickly. And, looking at that, out-of-body experience, it was kind of like I was out of the car, watching me with what was going on. And then, a split second, I'd gone from out of the car back into my own body and kicked in. I was like, shit, what are you doing? Bang, on the brakes. And then, it's hard to explain. That's how it felt for me. And I know it's going to be different for everyone. But, yeah, I'm fortunate that I didn't go through with that action, because I've got opportunities like this to sit down with you guys and share my experiences.
And so, Mickey, that's a full-on story. And every time, I've heard you tell it, but not in that detail before. You've made, a pretty drastic decision and said, okay, this is it. You've got it up to 212, as you said, but then something's kicked in, and you've said, no, I want to be here for all those reasons that you outlined just before. Was that the turning point, and you said, I've got to do something pretty significant about this? What was it like, the next day?
That was the wake-up call. It was kind of like, what are you doing? Why? And like I mentioned before, my parents, my brother, the small community, I had so many amazing people around me that would support me. And it wasn't until maybe 4 or 5 years later that I'd actually built up the courage to talk to my parents about how bad I was and what I'd contemplated doing.
So no one actually knew that for 5 years?
No.
And how close was it?
Pretty close. Yeah, pretty close. I couldn't give you a meterage.
Did you end up having a stack, or were you able to recover
just
the car and no one knew any different? What?
Just slammed on the brakes, middle of the road kind of thing. Yeah. So there was the road, tree in the distance, and then I was just driving straight towards a tree, slammed on the brakes, and then pulled the car over within a safe distance, thank God, and just sat on the side of the road and cried uncontrollably for 4 hours.
Yep.
and then snuck in the front door once my parents had gone to bed so they didn't realise how bad I was.
And then just went to bed.
Went to bed.
Kept it from them for 5 years.
Kept it from them, didn't talk to them about it. Now I was open with them about my mental health and what I was going through and my challenges and things like that. But not to that point.
And what about that conversation 5 years later?
Well,
talk us through that. You've got your mum sitting there and you say, listen, Mum, I've got to tell you something.
Well, the only reason I had to share it with them was because I'd done a bit of a segment with a mental health charity and it was going on social media.
Okay.
You're like, fuck, I better tell them before they hear it through socials.
I know. I thought I better share.
Should be on the phone. You go, Michael.
Yeah, I know. I thought I better share it with them. And like I was still living in Benalla at the time. So it was lucky, I guess, that I was still there in that environment with them. But I can just remember it was my mum, my dad and my brother. And we're sitting in the lounge room and I just said, look, I've got to share something with you just because this is going to come out tomorrow and I wanted to let you guys know first. I wanted you to hear it from me face to face before anybody else heard it. And the look and the sound of my mum and dad, and my brother as well, everyone, just the facial expression that I saw on them just, I guess, made me realise the decision I made was the right one, because that hurt and pain that I caused them by sharing what I'd contemplated doing, I could only imagine what it would have been like if I had have done it. So like that's something I can never erase, the thought of the car, the thought of the tree, but then also the vision that I've got of my parents and my brother sitting in the lounge room in a circle. And I was like, this is what we're going to, I want to share this with you. Something that I'll never forget.
Would have been a really emotional day, mate.
It was. It's weird. Like I've had people say to me, like, why don't you get sad or emotional talking about your story? Like, because that's a powerful story. Like I just look at it and think that's a story. That's my story. Now, if you've never heard it, that might be emotional. It might, hit the heartstrings with the person that has never heard it before. But it could be an anniversary. It could be a smell. It could be a song on the radio. It could be a date on the calendar, like things like that could make me really emotional. Or there could be a time where, I could sit down today and I could share that story and I could get really emotional. It doesn't always have to be that thing. Like I know with you and Mike, like we did that presentation at the golf club and I got up in front of, 40 people and I said, I've had a shit day today.
Yeah.
And everyone looks at me, is like, is this guy serious? Like he's here to motivate us about mental health. Like why is he starting off like this?
Yep.
Why'd you do it?
Just because I had a shit day, and I thought I need to be open and honest. With what I'm.
And that's one
what
thing
I'm
you always
going
get.
through.
One thing I know about Mick is he's never ever shies away from telling you how he's feeling and being honest about it. You never ever put up what you see is what you get with Mick, heart on the sleeve type stuff. And I think eventually once people got their head around that initial opening, they were really appreciative that you came in there and you were honest. And you didn't sugarcoat anything. I think it was a really, really powerful sort of thing.
And I think at times too, if you're in the mental health space all the time, people think that you've got it together all the time. But I'll never be 100%. And I know that and I'm okay with that. But I've got better coping tools and strategies in place now to actually look after myself on a daily basis.
And I think that's a brilliant thing. We're going to be exploring a little bit about those strategies. You talked about Black Saturday and losing your auntie, and losing loved ones in the Black Saturday bushfires. Obviously, the follow-on effects of that sent you into a bit of a downward spiral. Alcohol abuse and those sorts of things. So your coping mechanism was to go into something that was potentially not going to be a great for your health and a great way to cope with that situation. Fast forward to your best mate. Talk us through that.
I was in Brisbane for work in 2019 and it was, I think, 5:45 in the morning and I got a phone call from my mate's, BJ's father-in-law at the time and he plays golf and I thought, shit, he's keen to play golf. Like he's called me 5:45. He hung up, left a message and I thought, I'll get back to him. It'll be fine. 3 minutes later, another phone call. God, there's been an opening on the tee time. Like he's really keen to get me in as a partner. And I answered the call. I said, hey, Joe, how are you, mate? What's going on? He goes, what's happening? I said, oh, nothing. I'm in Brisbane for work. And he goes, oh, have you heard about BJ? And I said, no, I haven't. He goes, he was killed in a car accident. And like my heart just sank. I was in a hotel room on my own. And I think the hardest thing that I found with that whole, I guess, incident was being in Brisbane for work was okay because it kind of took my mind off everything that was going on. But I got home at 2 a.m. and I walked into the kitchen and, it still hits me hard. I looked on the calendar, 5 days later, pick up BJ from the airport.
Yeah.
And, it's one of the hardest things because I talk about the importance of network and our loved ones around us and our friends and the people that we can rely on. He was one of them. Like, even though he was living in Malaysia at the time.
Always chatting,
whether it be texting, phone calls, things like that. And it goes back to exactly what I said before, like, don't take those moments for granted. So my fiance and I, we'd travelled earlier on in the year. So went over there to stay 2 weeks with him, played footy over there. And then he said, you need to come back for the Asian Champs, which is an AFL tournament over in Asia. And I thought, I don't know if I should, but, it's a great opportunity. When will I ever get a chance to do this again? And lucky for me and fortunate for me that I actually did that because 2 months later, that's when he was killed in the car accident.
and you can look back at those memories.
Yeah,
Cherish
and
them.
as hard as it is, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about him. I've got a photo of him and I on my bedside table. I wake up every morning. I look at our photo from when we were like traveling together, but we had a weird relationship. Like, best mates don't have to talk that much. We hadn't spoken much for 10 to 11 years. But it wasn't that we weren't mates. It was just that we were moving in different circles and doing different things. He was overseas and that kind of thing.
Yep.
I was just lucky that when he moved back to Melbourne, he moved into Mentone, which was a kilometre from my place. So we'd go to the gym together. We'd hit golf balls together. We'd go to the sauna together. We'd literally do everything together. Yeah. So it was like we were making up lost time for that 11 years. And then to do 2 international trips over to Malaysia and then Thailand with him, and then, get that news 2 months later, it was extremely tough. And I still find it tough these days. But I guess it's like I always say, you never get over stuff. You just find better ways to cope and deal with it.
And you said with in 2009, you had that incident with Black Saturday, and then you got Beach in 2019. Your responses to both incidents were totally different, would you say? So on one hand, originally you're sort of not doing the best things, but then with Beach, you're actually learning to cope. What did you learn in that period of time, that 10 years, about yourself, about how to cope when times are tough? And what did you put into place after knowing that obviously the news was going to rock you and it was going to have a huge impact on your life? What did you have to put in place to make sure that you manage your mental health? Yeah,
well, I think as cliche as this sounds, I'd learn a lot more about myself by 2019. Like 2009, I was still relatively young. But 2019, it was one of those things because he was a schoolmate. We'd catch up with old school friends and they were other people that I hadn't really seen too much of. So it was, we'll catch up, we'll have a few drinks, we'll talk about all the memories and like talk about the good times and things like that. And I started to see some old habits creeping in. So like, go out for 2 beers with your mates. All of a sudden you're having 5 beers and sharing a bottle of red and things like that. And I was like, I don't really need this. So the 27th of December each year, the Malaysian Warriors footy team that are back in Melbourne, they get together and just, have a Christmas catch up and then leading into New Year's. And that day we all got together at one of the pubs, had a few drinks, and I was like, I don't actually know if I need to drink after this. It was kind of like a light bulb moment. Now, one thing that Beej always used to do was he'd rate sunsets. So he'd be overseas, he'd be putting up photos. I reckon this one's an 8 out of 10. This one's a 6 out of 10. Yeah. And after having a fair few beers at that pub in the afternoon, I kind of got to the stage where I was like, I don't really feel like being around people now. And the sky actually looked pretty nice. I was like, I'm going to leave the pub, I'm going to get the train home, and I'm going to walk home via the beach because there was a nice sunset. And I was like, I don't think I need to drink now. So from, I guess, 2009, drinking a lot and not really knowing as much about myself or the positive things that you could do to look after your mental health, I thought at the time alcohol was my number one thing and it was actually doing me, a positive. But then fast forward to 2019, I was like, I don't really need this anymore. So I kind of set my challenge to go the next year. It's like, all right, 12 months. Let's have a crack at not having a beer or any drink for 12 months. And I got through 12 months and, COVID hit. So we couldn't go out, couldn't catch up with anyone. Mon, my fiance, doesn't drink much at all. Like she might have one drink a month, if that. So I was like, well, I'm not just going to buy a slab from Dan Murphy's and sit at home and not do anything because like apart from when I was at my worst and kind of hiding my drinking at home wherever I was or going to the pub or things like that, I didn't really see the need now to sit at home and drink if I couldn't go out, if I wasn't going to a gig or going to a footy match or things like that. So I set that goal, got to 12 months, and I was like, I feel really good. I'm going to see if I can keep going. So now it's, coming up to kind of 3.5 years without having a drink, but it's more so I have people say, are you going to drink again? Like I might have a drink every now and then, and I don't know if it's about actually drinking, but it's almost the challenge that I set for myself. It's almost ending the streak of not drinking.
Yeah. So you build a bit of pride around that.
Yeah. So I've gone almost 3.5 years now. If I have one drink, then it means I've got to wake up tomorrow morning and go, shit, day one starts again.
Yeah.
Now I'm 3.5 years behind where I was.
Yeah.
So it's...
But it's had a real positive impact on your mental health as well, because I know you're big on exercise. You're in the gym a lot of the time. You're pretty active on social media for those that want to check out Mick's guns.
I've lost a bit of them.
You're out there, and you obviously take that seriously, mate. So your exercise is a big important. One of the things we ask people, in particular, I'd love to learn from you is, what are your non-negotiables? What do you have to do each and every day, weekly, monthly? What is it that sort of constitutes your mental health sustainability, I guess you could say, and making sure that you're okay in the head?
Well, I think there's the three key pillars for me that I look at, and it's sleep is one.
Yep.
I think that if you get a good night's sleep, now we're meant to get on average around 8 hours of sleep a night. But if you get 5 hours of sleep, 6 hours of sleep, and you know that you can function on that and you feel good doing it, I'm not a sleep expert, but it's like, don't mess with it, if it makes you feel good. So sleep is number one because I think everything revolves around sleep. So if you get a good night's sleep, you wake up the next day feeling better, you're probably going to make better food choices. You're probably going to make better exercise choices or something that you do. Because I know for me, if I had a massive night where there's 1 hour of sleep, I'd had a slab of cruises or, whatever, even more, I'm going to wake up. I'm not going to go straight to the fruit bowl in the morning.
Yeah.
I was going straight to Macca's and I was getting a double quarter pounder, like a large double quarter pounder meal.
The hangover cure.
A cheeseburger and 10 nuggets every Sunday.
Take us through the next two. What are the non-negotiables?
Food.
So
good food, and I think everything in moderation, but also rewarding yourself.
Yep.
So I go through stages with my food. So I've always had body image issues. So I've always been a young kid. Like from a young kid, I was always the chubby kid on the monkey bars and things like that. Maybe getting picked on, like poked in the stomach or stomach grabbed and things like that. So I guess it kind of set me up for issues that I've got or still have to this day. But I go through stages where it's like I'm cutting out carbs because I really want to drop a lot of fat and I want to try and lean up a bit, or I'm going to eat more protein. So I go through different stages. But now I've just kind of found that healthy balance. So it's like Mon and I going out for dinner tonight, going to an Italian restaurant. Back in the day, if I was in that mindset of I'm not having carbs, I'd ask for bolognese sauce without pasta.
Yep.
And you're going to an Italian restaurant, it just makes no sense. But for me, it's...
You got kicked out, mate.
Yeah, so it's just food. Like food is a really important one. So getting good nutrients, good nutrition, all that kind of thing, and then exercise.
Yep.
So I think all of those three things flow into one. because, like I said, if you have a good night's sleep, all those other things fall around. And then I guess the fourth one for me would be connection. So making sure that you're having conversations with your family, your friends, work colleagues, and then even like picking up your phone, like I said earlier, and checking in with people that you mightn't have spoken to in a little bit. So it's like, oh, I haven't spoken to Benny for a while. I'm going to pick up my phone. Hey, mate, haven't spoken to you for a while. Seen you been on the road for work. How's everything going?
Yeah.
So it's
And Mick's
simple.
great. Mick's great at doing that. Like you're one of the top, definitely in the top three, mate, of guys that we will just hear of out of the blue. Hey, how you feeling? How you going? And checking in. You're a master at that. So I think it's a really important lesson for everyone to take away is just, check in. If you haven't heard from someone, check in. Like you said, even before we were talking about with Beej, you might be disconnected for 10 years, but I'm sure that over that period of time, you're checking in and you're touching base and seeing if each other are okay.
Yeah, and it's not a hard thing to do.
No.
So I think if we're going to open up the conversation, making sure that we've got the time is probably the key thing because, if I message or call you, Mike, and I say, how's everything going? Oh, mate, things have been really tough lately. Sorry, I'm about to go into a meeting.
Yep.
Let me get back to you in a couple of hours.
That's a great point.
So
right?
it's, I think we can be guilty of that. Like we've got to make sure that if we're going to open up that can of worms to say, is everything okay? I haven't heard from you for a while. And then we find out that this is happening and there's other things in your life that aren't 100%. If we don't have the time, it makes it really hard. But the other thing, and I'm sure you guys are the same, we often hear when we ask someone a question, how have you been? Oh, it's been so busy.
Yeah.
Flat out.
Flat out. Everyone, that's normally the answer that we get. I'm really busy at the moment.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're busy enough to not pick up our phone and send a text message which takes 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, do you want to have a hit of golf tomorrow?
Do you reckon, Mickey, that sometimes people, avoid asking that question because they don't have the energy to hear a response that they may not feel like they're qualified for?
Yeah, I reckon.
You reckon people avoid those sort of tougher conversations?
I think there's times, I've worked with organisations in the past where they say, our managers are a little bit uncomfortable asking these questions because they don't feel like they've got the skills or the knowledge or the qualifications.
What do you say to that?
I think we've all got the best qualification and it's our 2 ears. We don't actually have to talk to someone and provide answers or advice. We've just got to create that space, make them feel comfortable, make them feel safe. Because if we listen, I think active listening is one of the hardest skills to master.
Yeah.
Like the amount of things that, what am I cooking for dinner tonight? Do I have to walk the dog? What am I doing on the weekend? We could have 100 thoughts going through our mind like at that time, but we've kind of got to shut that stuff out and really focus on what that person is saying to us.
Yep.
So like listening, I think, is the best qualification that we can have.
Absolutely.
And just creating the space for them to actually open up and share what they're going through.
Yeah, 100%.
And you're a passionate man, mate. You really are. In everything that you do, it's really good. You've got a lot of, wonderful energy. And I'd love to hear more about, you mentioned before about Journey. Now, Journey is something that you're really, really passionate about. You've been doing it for a number of years now. Tell us about the Journey story and what it means to you.
Well, it's an interesting start to the story because I started it right before COVID.
Okay.
So I don't recommend to anyone listening to start a side hustle before a pandemic. But it probably almost worked. It worked in a positive way as well because it got people talking.
Yeah.
So it was a challenging time in everyone's lives. No one had been through anything like that. So to launch a mental health clothing brand to get more people talking at that time was probably a bonus. The interesting thing, though, about Journey Apparel was within 3 days of actually launching the clothing brand, I had another mental health clothing brand reaching out to me to threaten legal advice or legal action.
Yeah, wow.
Not legal advice because that probably would have been a bonus, but yeah, they were threatening legal action.
Needed legal advice.
What was there Was there like a conflict with the name or what was going on?
No, well, they thought that I was stealing all their ideas.
Okay.
IP sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I just thought, well, like how many messages can there be around mental health clothing? And I just said to them, how long do you think it takes to actually launch something like this? And they said, it's been taking us about 6 months to a year to get all this stuff off the ground for our brand. And I said, so you think that I can make something up in 1 week, get T-shirts printed, get the brand sorted, get all the logos design done. Like, do you think that's possible? And they're like, no, probably not.
Yeah. And was it, without mentioning names, was it a for-profit sort of company that was, protective of, or was it, how did that all work, and why were they, what ended up happening with that?
Well, the weird thing was I got a random message on social media about, would you like to come to our clothing launch for mental health? And I was like, well, I don't know how they know who I am or like how I've even been invited to this. And then I went along because I thought, it's a good opportunity to network and meet people, because I love having a conversation, as you blokes know. And then, within that week, I'd already had the plans for this stuff. Like, this was in the works from 2019, and I launched this at the start of 2020. And, within that week, I was ready to launch Journey Apparel, and I was like, then they said, we're going to threaten that legal action against you.
Yeah.
But it was just an interesting situation, because it made me sit there and go, am I doing this? Like, why am I doing it? Should I be doing it? Like, I'm doing this to try and help people, and I'm copying this crap, and I haven't even started. Like, the brand has only just started. Like, it's fresh.
So if we can backtrack and just go back to the question before about Journey Apparel, what does it sort of mean and stand for? Can you run us through a little bit about that, as opposed to talking? Let's sort of park talking about the other brand and whatever.
Yeah. So for me, it's just
why did you start it? What does it mean, and what do you want people to do as a result of engaging with your brand?
Yeah. So for me, I just wanted to prevent what I went through back in the day, and I thought a clothing brand could do that. If people see a brand on a T-shirt, it's about creating that comfortable, safe environment so that they can actually open up. It's like, so they're wearing a Journey T-shirt. I can talk to them about that. I know what that brand is. Or
Love
it creates a conversation of going, what's Journey Apparel? What's the Love Heart about? So for me, like, I've got the Everyone Has a Story T-shirt on today, but the Journey logo when it first started was the script writing with a love heart as the O. And, the script writing was all about the windy roads that we might take on our journey, the challenges and the hurdles that we might face. The love heart is around the support that you get from your family and friends through the challenging times, but also the good times. And just the word is about, we've all got a journey. Everyone has a story. But it's about opening up, I guess, the dialogue and making people feel comfortable to actually share that. So
I love it, mate.
We could go for a walk down the street after this for 5 hours, and you have a minute with each person. They could give you a good and a bad story that they've faced in their life.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
It's just about getting them to feel comfortable to share that stuff, because I can pump this brand and pump this message every single day. But it's about me getting others wearing the T-shirts and sharing their story and experiences, because that might resonate with someone else. Could be single mum, going through some challenging times, wearing a Journey T-shirt. What does that mean to you? I've got the meaning for me, but it's about, what does that meaning for you, or what does that word on your chest mean to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And getting them to share that.
Love it.
Yeah, that's bloody awesome, mate. And I love what it's all about. And I think the main thing is the reason behind it. I think that's the way you've summed it up there with that windy road. It is windy for everyone. It is a roller coaster for us all. And I think you've summed it up bloody perfectly, mate. And couple of other things that we just like to do is ask that if you could give yourself, your younger self, some advice, what would that be?
Talk sooner. That's the thing that I always say, because I look back at it and think, got to be tough, got to be strong, don't show weakness, don't show emotion, all those things. But if I had have spoken sooner, I would have got help at the age of 16 rather than 21. I would have had better skills in place, better techniques to look after myself, because I often look back at my journey and think that the hardest part was going to be opening up and talking about what I was going through. And as hard as that was, once I actually spoke to a health professional and started talking, I realised that the hardest part was going out in public and putting on the mask and pretending to be someone that I wasn't. So once I actually opened up and spoke about what I was going through, I could actually be myself. If people didn't want to hang around me because I had a mental health problem, that was their problem, not mine. So I had the right people around me. So if I could look back at my journey, talk sooner.
Absolutely love that. Mickey, we do some quick fire questions with all our guests. I'm going to
Strap
throw a
yourself
few
in.
things at
No
you.
pressure.
Schnitty or steak, mate?
Schnitty all the way.
Schnitty all the way.
Yeah,
okay.
Nice.
If I look at a
No
menu,
hesitation just there, mate.
I do like
Any
a steak.
sauce? Any sauce on the snitty?
Parma all the way.
Yeah.
Palmer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Palmy,
boy.
wherever you're listening from.
Yeah, that's it.
It's
Yeah,
up to
yeah.
you. I can look at the menu, and as soon as I see the chicken parmigiana, I'm all over it.
Boom. Yeah. Potty, book, or tunes?
Tunes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anyone?
Genre?
Punk or pop punk. That's my go-to.
Oh, nice.
Favorite band?
Blink 182, 100%. If you've got contacts, if anyone out there has contacts for me to meet them, I would do anything.
Favorite song?
It's a tough one. They've got some really good songs. Have to go albums. Take Off Your Pants and Jacket is a good album.
Yeah, right.
Wow, okay.
Self-titled. It's hard. I love Feeling This. Feeling This is a good get-up song.
Yeah, love it.
If I don't know what mood I'm in, I always just go straight to Blink 182 and that sorts me out.
Mickey, where do you go to switch off, mate?
Beach.
Beach.
Yeah,
Love
beach
it.
or gym. They're the two.
Okay.
I've been doing a bit of Pilates lately too, so that's
Love it.
actually helped. Bit of hot mat Pilates.
Yeah, right.
It's good.
Hot.
Can't say I've done it, but I always
36
willing
to
to try.
38 degrees. It's interesting. It
Yeah.
really gets the sweat flowing.
How's the smells going? Floating around the room.
Not too bad.
Not too bad.
I cake myself in cologne
Yeah.
before I go in. But
Offset.
it's because it's something that I'm not used to. I'm just like focusing on each exercise, so it just kind of makes me switch off. So mainly the beach and the gym.
Yeah,
Mickey,
awesome, mate.
what is the worst advice you've ever been given about your mental health?
Snap out of it.
Yeah, love that. Snap out of it.
You know, the amount of times if people aren't actually educated about it,
Yep.
just get over it. Snap out of it. And it's like, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
If it was that easy, I think I would have done it.
Yeah. So it's, those kinds of comments don't do anybody any favours.
Yeah, I love
and
that, mate.
The other saying that I'm not a massive fan of, and a lot of Australians use it, is chin up.
Chin up.
Chin up, mate.
Chin up.
You'll be right.
Come on, you'll be right. Yeah,
So
chin
like
up.
you lose someone, and I know it must. It's
Yeah.
coming from a right place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like you've lost someone in your family. I'm sorry for your loss, mate. Chin up.
Yeah.
It's like I feel like shit at the moment.
Yeah, I love that. So, it's just
like
totally devaluing.
Up is the
how someone's
last
feeling.
place my chin wants to go right now.
Yeah.
So, it's
you
just-
just crack them one in the chin when they say that. to
Pretty
you?
much.
No, it's-
It's like don't listen to those comments.
Best advice around your mental health you've ever received?
That's a really good question. I think probably just someone just saying to me, like, it's not really advice, but it was more so, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
So it's not really the advice that they give me, but it's just that comment that they make that I'm here for you whenever you need me. So it's like, you've got that support, even though like deep down when I was at my worst, I knew I had amazing people around me.
Yeah. So even if you don't use it, it's comforting, isn't it? Knowing
Yeah.
that you have it if you need it.
Yeah. And I think people that say that they don't understand what you're going through, but they can relate because everybody's different. So if someone says to me, I'm struggling, what should I do? Or like, I don't know how to do it. I always say, I don't understand what you're going through, but I can relate to how you're feeling or
that's
what you're
great advice.
experiencing.
Yeah.
So like getting that, but just that I'm here for you,
Yep.
is I think just a huge one that we can do. And it's only a few words.
Yeah, and it's so great coming from a guy that's a big, bold, you're a macho sort of character. You walk around, you get the guns out, got the pipes cranking, and you can actually have those soft conversations, and you're the first person to do it. So I think it's brilliant, mate.
I'm one of the most emotional blokes getting around.
You should have seen the hug that he gave me when he walked in before, Benny.
Thanks,
almost
mate.
gets
Rub
his
it in.
shirt fronted me around the corner.
I'll tell you what, though, he gave me a huge. It was almost a shirt front, mate. No, and I just bounded. When you bound in though and do that, it just goes to show what sort of character you are, and we really appreciate you coming in.
Well, I
You've
think
told
too,
us, yeah,
like I was just going to say too, like the emotion is like one of the most important things. I think one of the biggest mistakes we can do as humans is apologize when we get emotional. Like that's who we are.
yeah,
100%.
So if we get emotional sharing a story, or if something triggers something within us and we start crying,
sitting it.
it's like, who cares? Like that's who we are. Like that's our emotion. That's the feeling that we get
Yeah.
from that situation. So I'm one of the most emotional blokes getting around. I'll cry in movies. I'll like watch a TikTok or whatever it is. I'll get emotional. Like it doesn't bother me because that's just who I am.
Yeah, that's cool. Hey, mate, Journey, where can people go? Where can people learn more about it? If they want to buy something, if they want to check it out, if they want to follow you, where are we sending them?
Do I put on my radio voice? So go to www. So
You can do that. I love the radio voice.
So just www.journeyapparel.com.au.
Yep.
So hit up that. I think it's there's not much on the website at the moment, only because I'm currently in the process of getting some new design stuff done.
Yep.
Which is really cool. I'm really excited to launch that. But hit me up on socials, or hit us up on socials, Journey Apparel on Instagram and Journey Apparel Oz on Facebook.
Yeah, brilliant, mate.
Awesome, mate.
Well, today we've had the absolute pleasure of listening to your story. I've learned some things that I knew nothing about. You've told us about some pretty dark moments, but also given us some really wonderful tips and tricks on how to manage your mental health from someone that knows it all too well. Really appreciate you coming in today, Mick. And just to finish off, we always like to ask our guests, you gave us a little bit of a definition of what it means to be tough and what you were led to believe that toughness means as a youngster growing up in a country town. Just like to ask you the question and finish off with asking you the question, what does tough mean to you today?
Open, honest and genuine with your loved ones. So having the conversation, just be as open and honest as possible with the people around you that you care about and they care about you. And don't hold it in. Just talk. It's the most important thing that you can do.
Brilliant, brother.
If today's conversation has either inspired you or struck a chord with something that you are dealing with, something that you're struggling with, don't be afraid to pick up the phone, call a mate, and if that mate doesn't answer, also there is absolutely no shame in calling Lifeline on 13 11 14 for a yarn.
Thanks for tuning in. Everything you've heard in today's episode will be in the show notes below, where you click to play this episode. While you're there, why not chuck us a subscribe or follow? Catch you next time.